My principal told us to daily, so there's constant communication. I like the adding of dates to the task. It makes it more organized. Yep. Look after they finish assignment. So what does the screen look like after they finish assignment? How do they turn in an assignment? Okay. Yeah, it's 3 o'clock. So what I'll do is I'll actually do some screenshots to show you what that looks like. Okay. And I do apologize about the time. A link again for the Padlet. I had to restart 2 times.
I put a link over there in the chat for the main
Google Meet. The
Yeah.
Padlet, I'll let me get the Padlet for you in 1 second.
I'll put the link in of the Padlet as well.
Oh, thanks. I'm gonna have to go in here. So I do recommend that we all sort of head back into the main meeting room. And I know we didn't get through all of the questions, but I will respond to those in the Padlet, if that's all right. All right, so I think you can hear me. I'm going to go back to my Google Classroom. And I'm going to answer a few questions here that I wasn't able to get to, but at least you can see the video transcript. So we did talk about there is no way to change the way assignments look like. This is how they appear, the icon. And when you create it, there is no way to change that from my understanding. I will do a little more research to see, but to answer your question, Swati, and from my experience, no, you cannot change the way that this particular assignment is viewed. You can change the name and the topic and the due date. And of course, when you click on it, you see the information, who's turned it in, assigned, and graded, and you can view that assignment by clicking here to see more in depth. Going back in here, parents have sent me screenshots of them trying to use. So again, just back to that question, I believe that is a generic email that the Gmail account they might be using. My suggestion is to either work with one teacher, do a screenshot, maybe even a video of just walking through and how to actually log into the correct Gmail account and the student's board email account, and then how to access it. So there's 2 ways, as I mentioned before. If you look in the email account here of one of my students, they get lots of emails in there. And there's a class invitation that comes here, and they can join. So that is another way to actually join if they're having an issue in that particular case. Or they can go into here and join in a class, but they have to be into their correct Gmail account. I did mention, when do I want to create an assignment versus posting material? An assignment, I prefer assignments because they have due dates on them. So you can see here, the students all see these due dates on them. But I have actually created material, and I did that in I think my math. Yeah, so you can see here, material appears here, and it just shows this is material, and this is how it actually shows. But there's no due date, and it just sort of appears in the stream page. So if from a student's perspective, and I do see it on this main page, it does it to me, it just says, oh, okay, there's more information here. I like to put an assignment and just not grade it versus putting it just as material. But typically you could use material for supplementary purposes, or let's say you want them to work for an hour or 2 on Prodigy, for example. You could specifically say, under patterning algebra, I want you to do this week to go into Prodigy and to work for an hour. Again, I would do it as an assignment versus so this is the student's view. And to go back into the teacher's view, I would do it as an assignment. Sorry, I would do it as an assignment here. Create an assignment. And the reason being, I wouldn't put any grading. I would make it ungraded, and I would say, put a specific due date. I want you to do this, read this material by this certain date. You don't need, you can align it to a topic. You don't need a rubric, and you can just put the instructions here in the title. That is personally how I would use it versus material. And just like the students were able to widget, okay. I had some issues with my, okay, yes. So just continuing on with the questions. So there is a way to send a link to the classroom versus the code. And I mentioned that that's in it as soon as you actually hit invitation here. So going back into my class as a teacher. So see, this is Miss Lamb homeroom grade 5. The people I want to add, if I want to invite someone, I type in their name or their email address here. Even if I type their name, it's looking for an email address. So you actually need that student account, and they can check their emails. And when they check their emails, I'll show you what it looks like. A student goes in here and they can see, oh, I have a class invitation. And you can also see there's a ton of other things that come up in the email as well. So that is just, it's another way for them to get access into the classroom and also to receive assignments or questions, etc. So I use predominantly assignments and questions. The assignments are for whether like an actual assignment work to do, but it's so if I want them to do certain class work and not be graded, then I use the assignments, but I put in due dates. And the other thing I use is questions, both diagnostic and formative. So just going through the questions here. Okay, what about virtual manipulatives like calculator, virtual-based 10 blocks, and videos? So Nadia wants to know about virtual material. So if I go into my classroom, one of the great things here is I can click an assignment and I can add material here. So I can take from my Google Drive. So if I have videos in my Google Drive, or I have visuals or manipulatives, interactive, typically not so much from your Google Drive, but this is where you can put a link to a particular website you could add here, an interactive website, for example, or a file if you have, you can upload from your computer, or you can take a YouTube video. What's also great is you can create, so docs, slides, sheets, drawings, and forms. So all of those integrate very nicely. So you could actually create a form that is interactive, where you can also embed images and so I can ask a question and I can also put in images here. I can insert an image either from a Google Drive, photos by URL, or I can upload it. So going back to the questions here, so lots of abilities to add in different interactive components. It's really about linking. And I think I mentioned there's hundreds of apps that can link to Google Classroom, and all they need is your Google Classroom class code. And then you can make sure that you create an assignment. I would create an assignment or material, but most likely I would create an assignment and do it that way. Or if you have a question and you want to link to something, they're all available here. The other thing is Code will not work. Sorry, just looking at the questions, want to get through them all. You can invite them under people. I post material if I'm posting anchor charts or success criteria. That's a great way. So Swati mentioned that she posts for anchor charts or success criteria. That's a great way. Learning goals, that's a great way to post, to do questions. Are people generally posting their classwork day to day during distance learning, or are they posting one assignment for the week on Monday that has all the work for the week? So generally, people are posting. I think this varies, and right now, I'm seeing because I think distance learning and online learning is very new for a lot of teachers. So what I'm noticing is a lot of teachers are just really using it for weekly assignments. So they're giving them assignments to work on and complete at the end of the week. So if you were using classwork, for example, you would create an assignment and you could say, I want you to, they would put their instructions, I want you to complete the following, either falling by Friday, and then could put the information, or they could say, they could put a weekly breakdown. You could do a weekly breakdown and either put it in one assignment or multiple assignments. So there's various different ways. I think a lot of teachers though are just providing just material for students to work on to have complete by the end of the week. It's very new for a lot of teachers right now. Yeah. So just share the link, Natty, with the assignment is Adobe Connect. Adobe Connect, my understanding, is not free. So principal told us to dailies. There's constant. So some school boards are actually encouraging people to put in daily work. So there's constant communication, and that's what Swati said. What does the screen look like after they finish assignment, and how do they turn it in? So if a student has, let's go in here. I have a diagnostic. They are supposed to go in Desmos, and they were supposed to complete it. So we can, the student has completed it. They'll sit there and say, mark as done. And it'll say, hey, you haven't attached anything. So your teacher will just see it's done. And you click on mark as done. Now, I could have attached something, but in this case, I'm just going to and it's been submitted. So that's how a student submits and turns something in. Let's go back into my homeroom because I have a few more classwork here. I have upcoming a formative ongoing assessment. And you could ask a question here. So it's asking a specific question. So I sent out a formative assessment to the student asking, how do you say she has brown hair in French? So I can sit there and ask them within here, and then I can turn that in. So these are two ways you can turn in your work. And another is if you have another assignment, let's go in here, where what lodging? So it was a question about from social studies. And I want to actually access this. So I want to view, it's a question. And it's worth 20 points. So in this case, because it is a question, I'm not really able to, I can put private comments and I can put something in, but I can't add any details in. What we want to do is look at maybe an assignment. Because in an assignment, they can actually add more materials to it. So this is I've got a new assignment here. And you can see in here, I can add work in here. So I can either create something, a slide, a sheet, a drawing, or add something, a file or a link or something from my Google Drive. So let's say I've got paper 2, I add it. Oh, give me. Didn't like that file. Let's say I add this in here. It's a document I have. And it will add it in. And then I can add something in here. This is my final final work. And then I turn it in. And then the turned in work comes in here. So this was in math, review material by specific date. If I go into the teachers, so I'm leaving the students, I'm going to go into the teacher's class. I'll see right away in the to-do if I needed to see, actually, it may not be in the to-do depending on if you reviewed it or not. But I can see that classwork is in here and review material by a specific, it was, sorry. So review material by a specific date. I can see that Jaden Lamb has turned it in. So it doesn't necessarily come right into me as a teacher saying, oh, this has come in immediately. If I go into the assignment, I can see that the student has turned it in. And then I can then grade it. I can take a look at it. So I look here, I can read it. I can add comments and feedback and post it here. I could record because I have Google Read and Write, so I could also do that as well. And then when I'm done here, I can see his files. I can return this submission, or I can return multiple submissions. I'm going to return this. I return it back to Jaden Lamb with his comments because this wasn't graded. If it was graded, it would then add in the grading aspect. So I think that is all of the questions that you had. I do encourage you to try and test it out. And if I'll go on the Padlet and ask more. Thank you.